ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते. So welcome to our Saturday morning session. And today we will cover verses 17 to 26 of chapter 3 of the Bhagavad Gita. So let's start with verse number 17 and then we will recapitulate a few things before we proceed further. So verse number 17 reads like this. परंतु जो मनुष्य आत्मा में ही रमण करने वाला और आत्मा में ही तृप्त है और आत्मा में ही संतुष्ट है उसके लिए कोई कर्तव्य नहीं है. Now this is a very profound statement which has three keywords here. One is rati rev, that is rati, all the time raman kar raha hai kisi cheez mein. He is absolutely, inundated in the inner self. Then there is a trapt, traptasya, पूरी तरह से तृप्त है अपने आप में. And there is santusht. These are the three words: rati, trapt, and santusht. These words have been used to reinforce the fact that if you are completely dedicated to your own self and if you are not dependent on the outside world, then you have no duties in this world. Whatever you do or you do not matter. But before we understand this verse properly, I think we need to recapitulate the word yagna once more. We dealt with that word in detail last time, but I thought there are a few aspects which we need to recapitulate. We understood that yagna has two aspects. The first aspect is that of human being. A human being who is performing his prescribed duties without any expectations or without any return, then he is performing yagna. Now those duties are all decided by the self based on his circumstances and the place. So he should perform those duties, whether they are duties towards family, whether they are duties towards the neighbor, whether they are the duties in your office, whether they are the duties to the nature. All these duties should be performed as part of the cosmic cycle. That is Srishti Chakra. The word which has been used there is Srishti Chakra. So as part of the cosmic cycle, we contribute whatever little we do in this entire universal cycle. And that has many manifestations towards your own family, your neighbors, your office, your friend circle, and of course towards nature. So that is one aspect of yagna. Those people who do not perform those duties, obviously they are not performing yagna. And in certain ways, in ancient Hindu writings, they have also been called as rin, pitra rin, or guru rin, or matra rin, or prakriti rin, that we have to repay those loans to all these forces which have helped us to bring up in this universe. The parents give us the birth, so we have to perform our duty in old age towards them. The nature nurtures us, so we have to nurture the nature. The neighbors and friends, they help us in difficult times, so we have to help them. So this is basically to repay our what you call loan to all the forces which were instrumental in our bringing up. So that is one part of yagna. Yagna is not merely the rituals which we perform by putting the havan samagri in the fire. That is more like a symbolic yagna. But real yagna is actually in performance of your duties as prescribed for you towards all the parts and particles which are, which constitute this cosmos. So that is one part of yagna, that is our own duties performing without any expectations, but in the form of repaying our loan for being in existence in this world and being nurtured. Therefore, we have to nurture the rest. And that is also the aspect of what we call Vanprasthashram, because in Vanprasthashram we are supposed to repay the knowledge, because we have been given knowledge by many forces in this world, and therefore in Vanprasthashram we are supposed to share our experiences with the rest and help them in better bringing up, so that we are able to keep the society in good health and we are able to repay our own debt. So that is at the level of human being. Then yagna is also performed at the level of universal forces. That is what the reference to Devas. That if you contribute to the Devas, then Devas will contribute towards your growth, and mutually you will grow. Now that Devas are basically the natural forces. For example, if you keep a river nicely, properly, the river will provide you clean drinking water. It will provide you water for irrigation. It will also provide you water for electricity and other, utilities of life. Similarly, if you keep the air clean, the air will nurture you properly. It will give you long life. It will keep you healthy. So all that is returned and a gift by the nature if you keep it in good shape. So then we have to keep our duties to the nature. That is second yagna that we have to perform with respect to the natural forces, which are instrumental in our survival, in our well-being, in our good health in this universe. Then the third part of yagna is the interaction of the natural forces themselves. For example, now the sun is hot, the earth is getting heated. Now that is the Agni. That is Agni and Som. We discussed this briefly, that there are two forces in the nature, Agni and Som, and the combination of the two forces keep this nature running and is functioning smoothly. Now with the sun heat, the earth heats up, and heats up means it acquires fertility. And when the rain comes, then with that som coming in on the Agni, what happens is the fertility of the earth come out. Then you have the plants and herbs and trees coming out of the earth. So this is the combination of Agni and Som. Similarly, the Agni is heating the water from the oceans, taking it in the form of clouds, and then with the condensation process, which is the Som, the water comes back on the earth in the form of rain, hails, snow, and other forms, and then again recharges our rivers and our water bodies and gives new lease of life to all the species of life on the earth. So that is the natural process which happens. Even for example, the day keeps us energetic, we work hard, but then it is followed by som, which is night. Now night is giving us the rest. If we don't have that rest, then we will not be able to work next day. So it is the combination of the Agni and the Som which keeps running this universe in a variety of form, and that combination is called yagna. That is the yagna performed by the natural forces themselves for the smooth running of this universe. So this is the process which is in modern sense it is called ecology, that all the forces are interdependent and they work in tandem with each other. Somebody's waste becomes somebody else's food, and somebody else's what you call exhale becomes somebody else's inhale. So all these things keep happening in this universe. They are all interdependent, and that is how the ecology means that we are one single family, which is what our ancestors said when they said ayam nij paroveti ganna laghu chetsam udar charita nam tu vasudheva kutumbakam. When they said that the whole earth is one single family, that is what they meant by ecological system. And this has been explained in verse number 15 and 14 and 15. in very precise way by Lord Krishna and the preceding verses. So I think that concept is extremely useful to understand the functioning of nature and our relationship with nature, our relationship with rest of the other species of life. Now we need to understand two more words here, asakt and anasakt, because these words will keep coming further down in the verses which we will be covering today. Now, anasakt does not mean that you become indifferent or you ignore things. For example, you have your duty towards family, you have to bring up your children, you have to look after their education, you have to look after their food requirements, their nourishment. All that, looking after all that is not asakti. That is only performance of your duty, as explained earlier. Anasakt necessarily, definitely does not mean that you ignore all these duties. No. Ignorance of those duties is actually something else which invites disaster. It is not anasakt. Anasakt is you are performing your duty, but at the same time, you do not have any expectation from those people to whom you are performing duties that they will return you something in back. Like you perform your duties towards your children now without any expectation whether they will look after you in your old age or not. That is anasakt. So anasakt means lack of or absence of expectations in return. That is anasakt. And asakt means that you are becoming dependent on others. That is asakti. For example, you are performing your duty towards your family all the time, thinking that they should look after me this way, that way, this way, that way, and that is asakti. So that is the difference between anasakt and asakt. Anasakt person is completely devoid of expectations, while asakt person is full of expectations in return for what he is doing for the rest. Now that is not yagna. Asakti is not yagna. Anasakti is yagna. Yagna is when you are performing your duties without any expectations from the other side. That is so anasakt and yagna in a way they are not identical, but they are quite similar to each other. So now let us go on these verses. The verse number 17, which we just read. In this verse, it's very clearly said that the person has to be contented. There are three words which have been used: rati, trapti, and santusti. So the person has to be fully contented with himself. It simply means that he will be devoid of any expectations. Contented with oneself means you are doing your duties without any selfish interest, without any expectation. That means contented. You do your duty and leave the rest to the samasti. Whatever happens, happens. You accept it as it comes. So that is the state where you reach. If you have reached that state, then you have no duties to perform. But it does not mean that you will not perform your duty. You are not obligated, but you are naturally performing your duty because, as Krishna has said, no person can live even for a moment without action. So you have to perform your action. You are required to perform your action because that is life. Life by its very nature is duty, performance of action. That is the name of life. Even if you are, for example, a person just standing, then you will feel he is not doing anything. But standing itself is also doing something. If somebody is sitting on the chair all the time, that is also performing a duty that you are sitting there. You are doing something. You are walking. That is also an action. Action is performed. So standing or sleeping or sitting is also an action. It is not equivalent to duty, but it's also an action. So action is an essential part as long as we are alive. Life means action, and therefore we cannot, escape action, and that is why we should perform our duties properly, though the person is not obligated to do so if he is contented with himself. So this is a little bit of contradiction, but this language is better understood in the context it was said 5,000 years back in time. So it means that uh, the duties have to be performed, because he will again, Krishna will again tell Arjuna that continue to perform your duties. He will tell at the end of these verses that continue to perform your duties, though he is here telling that those persons who are self-contented, they have no duties to perform, they are not obligated, but because of very nature of the life, you have to perform action, and therefore it is better to perform your duties without expectations. So that is verse number 17. Then verse number 18. उस महापुरुष का इस विश्व में न तो कर्म करने से कोई प्रयोजन रहता है, और न कर्मों के न करने से ही कोई प्रयोजन रहता है, तथा संपूर्ण प्राणियों में भी इसका कंचित मात्र भी स्वार्थ का संबंध नहीं रहता. So this Mahapurush means the person who is contented in himself. This is the reference to that person. So that person becomes completely anasakt from this whole physical world. Whatever happens in this world, he accepts as it is. He does not intervene anywhere. He performs his duties, though he says that here Krishna says that उसका कार्य करने से और न करने में कोई प्रयोजन नहीं है, बट इसका अर्थ ये नहीं है कि वो अपनी ड्यूटी नहीं करेगा. इसका अर्थ अगेन वही है कि since you have to perform action in your life, without action no life is possible, you continue to do your action, but you are doing that action without any expectations, without any comment from outside world. You are not becoming dependent on what is done by the others, but you are dependent on your own self. The verse number 19. इसलिए तू निरंतर, देखिए यहां पर he is telling again, इसलिए तू निरंतर आसक्ति से रहित होकर सदा कर्तव्य कर्म को भली भांति करता रहे. This is what he is saying again, that you have to perform your duty completely devoid of expectations. That is important, that is a must. And then क्योंकि आसक्ति से रहित होकर कर्म करता हुआ मनुष्य परमात्मा को प्राप्त हो जाता है. जो आदमी बिना एक्सपेक्टेशन के, बिना किसी प्रयोजन के, बिना किसी स्वार्थ के अपना कर्तव्य कर्म करता रहता है, वह आदमी परमात्मा को प्राप्त हो जाता है. This is what he says here. So the crux of all these verses are that once you do karma like this, then you are performing yajna. You are putting that little bit, yajna samagri in this whole cosmos, and so that the cosmos runs smoothly. And that yajna samagri you are putting without any expectations, without any desire, without any selfish motive. And that is what he is saying here in verse number 19. So we have to follow that. I think this is a great lesson one can learn, that continue to do your work, your duty, without expecting anything in return. Don't even think about it. Think that this you have to do as part of your existence. Since you are alive and you are required to perform action, you are doing your contribution to the whole cosmos, and that is it. That is it. You have to stop there. The verse number 20th. Now, जनकादि ज्ञानी जन भी आसक्ति रहित कर्म द्वारा ही परम सिद्धि को प्राप्त हुए हैं. इसलिए तथा लोक संग्रह को देखते हुए भी तू कर्म करने के योग्य है, अर्थात तुझे कर्म करना ही उचित है. Now it looks little contradictory on verse number 17. He says that जो व्यक्ति आत्मा में ही संतुष्ट है और आत्मा में ही तृप्त है और आत्मा में ही लीन है, उस व्यक्ति के लिए कोई कर्म नहीं है. But here he is saying that कर्म करना जरूरी है. So I think that verse number 17 is in a broader context, that it is not important for him, it is not obligatory, but still every human being, so long as he is alive, they are required to perform their prescribed duties, because nobody can live without performing action in this world even for a second. And that is why he is repeating that same verse, same thing in verse number 19 and 20th to Arjun, that you should perform, keep performing nirantar. In verse number 19 he says, इसलिए तू निरंतर आसक्ति से रहित होकर और अनासक्त होकर अपने कर्तव्य कर्म का पालन करता रहे. और यहाँ in the next verse he is saying Janakadi, the people who are great personalities in the past, like Raja Janak was one of them, or many others. So he says Janak and many other people who have acquired complete liberation or complete moksha in the past, they had also performed their duty without any attachment whole their life, and that is how they reached that state, and therefore you should continue to do that. Now, verse number 21. This is another very important verse, and we have to understand the, what you call implications of this verse. श्रेष्ठ पुरुष जो जो आचरण करता है, अन्य पुरुष भी वैसा वैसा ही आचरण करते हैं. वह जो कुछ प्रमाण कर देता है, समस्त मनुष्य समुदाय उसके अनुसार बरतने लग जाता है. Now this we see in our life, day-to-day life. You see some of these people, who become hero in the public life, like some of these actors and actresses. The people imitate them so much that he is wearing this kind of dress, he has this kind of haircut, he is conducting himself this way, and they start behaving like this. Millions of people follow them. The so-called followership, the so-called fan, the fan parivar. Now, this is effect of life, that the people at Shrestha means in Shrestha, has many meanings here, in variety of ways. There may be a leader who is a political leader. There may be a person who is, wise person in a village. He may be a Shrestha person. There may be a rich person. He may be a Shrestha person. There may be a big, managing director of a company. He may be presenting. So any person who is in a position to influence others is called Shrestha in this verse. Who is influencing the conduct and behavior of the others. Like the boss in the office, the way if he comes late every day, all others will start coming late. If he is very punctual, others will follow and they will be very punctual. If he is very serious in his discharge of his functions, others will also become serious. So the people imitate them. If there is a family, head of the family, if he is very careless, the rest of the family becomes careless. If he conducts himself in a very responsible manner, he manages the family with all his attention, other people also become like that. So our conduct actually impacts a large number of people who are following us in one way or the other. And therefore, it is our responsibility, particularly people like us who are in higher strata of the society, that we conduct ourselves in a responsible manner, so that others also follow the same pattern, and we are not becoming, what we call the cause of destruction of the society. If we are conducting ourselves in a bad way, then we are becoming a cause of destruction of the society, destruction of the family, destruction of an institution. So I think that is very important, that we should understand our position and influence, and keeping that in mind, our conduct should be in consonance with our status, in addition to what has been said earlier, because we are also influencing others, and we cannot become cause of corrupting the society at large. So our conduct is not only bringing good or bad results for us, but it is also becoming much higher result for us, because we are corrupting or disciplining the rest of the society. So our role becomes important, and therefore the result of our karma also becomes equally important, equally proportionately, more, I would say, substantive. So this is very important, verse number 21. Then let's go to verse number 22. हे अर्जुन, मुझे इन तीनों लोकों में न तो कुछ कर्तव्य है, न कोई प्राप्त योग्य होने वाली वस्तु है, फिर भी मैं कर्म में बरतता हूं. अब ये कृष्ण himself is saying about himself that I have nothing to gain in this world, and I have no duties. According to verse number 17, he is आत्मा में तृप्त है, आत्मा में संतुष्ट है, आत्मा में उनकी रति है, फिर भी वो कहते हैं मैं कर्म में बरतता हूं. वो कह रहे हैं कि मेरा कोई कर्तव्य नहीं है इस संसार में, फिर भी मैं कर्म में इसलिए बरतता हूं क्योंकि if I do not do so, the rest of the humanity will follow my example and they will also behave accordingly, and I would become responsible for their misconduct. So this is very important verse here, verse number 21 and 22. And then 23, क्योंकि हे पार्थ, यदि कदाचित मैं सावधान होकर कर्मों में न बरतूं तो बड़ी हानि हो जाएगी, क्योंकि मनुष्य सब प्रकार से मेरे ही मार्ग का अनुसरण करने लगेंगे. So he says that I will become responsible for their misconduct if I do not follow my own path correctly. Though I do not have any obligation of performing any karma in this world, and there's nothing which I need to acquire from this world, because I am आत्मा में संतुष्ट हूँ, मैं आत्मा में तृप्त हूँ, आत्मा में रत हूँ, still I have to do my karma properly in a responsible manner, because if I do not do that, I will be responsible for the misconduct of all the people who are following my conduct. And that is very, very important. That is why we have a role in the society larger than our own responsibility. Our role is much bigger, because we are also making or unmaking a society in terms of the followings we have. And that responsibility rests upon us, and therefore we need to perform our karma properly in a very dedicated fashion. So this is how verse number, the Shrestha Purush ka acharan, the conduct of a person who is higher in the pedestal in the society is always followed, and therefore he has higher duty. In fact, in Mahabharata and other writings, it has been clearly said that they have talked about what we call Raj कर्म जो है राजा को जो करने चाहिए. But Raja necessarily does not mean only the ruler. Raja also means the person who is heading the societal structure in some way, somewhere. Like if you are a wise man in a village, if you are a rich person in a village, if you are the boss in the society, in your institution, you are head of a family. So all these positions are equivalent to the position of a Raja in certain ways. And therefore you have to do your karma in a responsible manner. So verse number 24, इसलिए यदि मैं कर्म न करूं तो ये सब मनुष्य नष्ट भ्रष्ट हो जाएंगे और मैं संदार का करने वाला बनूंगा और समस्त प्रजा को नष्ट करने वाला बनूंगा. मैं प्रजा को संहार करने वाला बनूंगा. देखिए, the words which have been used here, that I will be a person who will be responsible for destruction of all these people if I do not conduct myself properly. So our own behavior, our own discipline, our own action is extremely important, whether you know it is in our personal capacity, in our social capacity, or any other capacity. Even if you are contented with your own self, even then it is important because it impacts the rest of the humanity. So I think these three verses, 21, 22, 23, and 24, actually, four verses, they are emphasizing this part that a person has to, regulate his conduct properly because he is followed by the rest of the society. And if the rest of the society is destroyed because of his conduct, then he will be responsible for all their misconduct. So this is extremely, and he's talking in his own context. He says, if I don't conduct myself properly, I will be responsible for the misconduct of the large masses. So I think this is very important that we follow a discipline in our life. This is the uh, what we call Krishna's concept of karma yogi. Karma yogi means, in fact, when we talk about Krishna's concept of karma yogi, it means that not only that we do not have any expectation, we should not have any expectation, we should be anasakt, but at the same time, you cannot ignore your karma in any condition. You have to perform your karma in a very responsible manner as part of your duty so that others are not impacted adversely in the process. The verse number 25, हे भारत, कर्म में आसक्त हुए अज्ञानी जन जिस प्रकार कर्म करते हैं, आसक्ति रहित विद्वान भी लोक संग्रह करना चाहता हुआ भी उसी प्रकार कर्म करे. Now here he is, going even further, that a person who is attached and who is ignorant, he is performing his work in this world because of attachment. Even the person who is wise and who is not attached, who is anasakt, he also should perform his duty in a similar fashion so that the rest of the humanity does not get distracted by his actions or inactions. So we have to conduct ourselves in the same fashion as people who are completely asakt in this world and who are doing their duty as for selfish reason. Though we are doing it selfishly, but we have to do our duty with the same zeal and same enthusiasm as others are doing, because that is important so that others are not distracted from their duties. So he has gone a step further here, telling us very clearly that even if you are wise, you have no duties to perform, even then you should perform your duty like the rest of the humanity does. Because if you don't do that, it will leave a wrong impression on the others, and you will be responsible for the wrong action by those people who are not performing their duties properly. So this is extremely important, verse number 25 here. Now, verse number 26, परमात्मा के स्वरूप में अटल स्थित हुए ज्ञानी पुरुष को चाहिए कि वह शास्त्र विहित कर्मों में आसक्ति वाले अज्ञानियों की बुद्धि में भ्रम अर्थात कर्मों में अश्रद्धा उत्पन्न नहीं करे, कर्मों में अश्रद्धा उत्पन्न नहीं करे, किंतु स्वयं शास्त्र विहित समस्त कर्म भली भांति करता हुआ उनसे भी वैसे ही करवाए. He is reinforcing this. The verse number 25 has been reinforced in verse number 26, saying that a person who is fully knowledgeable, fully full of wisdom, and he is contented with himself, even in that case, he has to perform his duty in the same way as the rest of the humanity, because if he does not do so, the rest of the humanity will develop aversion towards their duties. अश्रद्धा उत्पन्न कर लेगी. If you do not perform, then others, those who are living in darkness, they will develop a different perception and they will start developing aversion to the duty, and which will not be good for the society. And that is why, even if you are fully contented, fully self-realized, if you have acquired all the liberation in your life, even then you should keep doing your duty in the normal way as the rest of the humanity does. And that is why Lord Krishna has been doing his duty as an ordinary human being. He is a self-realized person. He is part of the Brahman, but he is performing the duty of a driver. Can you imagine? He is only a Sarthi of Arjuna. He is only looking after his horses. He is riding the chariot. So he is nourishing the horses. So that is the duty he is performing. And then he is also performing his duty in other ways, like he came as a diplomat in the court of Dhritarashtra to tell Duryodhan that don't do this war, it is not going to help you. And you can give even 5 villages, we will accept it. But even that was not given, and then he returned back. So he was performing his duties in a totally normal way as ordinary human beings do. In fact, in his lifetime, a large number of people did not know that he was the avatar of the Almighty. They didn't know, except a very few people who could understood him, like Bhishma and Drona and some others, or Vidur. They could understand him, but a large number of them did not understand that he was in the form of the Almighty, because he was performing his duty like a normal human being. So even those people who are advanced in their life, who have realized themselves, who are contented with their own self, who have no duties to perform, even those people are required to perform their duties as an ordinary human being, so that the society moves smoothly, society moves in the correct direction, society moves without any deviation from the right path. So this is very important, and that is why we have a duty to the society, and as part of that duty, we have to fulfill our karma in a proper, correct way, so that others are not corrupted. That is important. So I will stop here, verse 26 today. But before I finish, I will also deal with two other words little bit. One is sakam and other is niskam, because sakam and niskam have also been misunderstood in variety of ways. Now sakam basically means that you are looking for happiness in the outside objects. For example, you go to a party, you are looking for happiness in a party. Somebody wants to go and buy new clothes, he's looking for happiness in new clothes. Somebody wants to buy jewelry, looking for happiness in jewelry. Somebody wants to go and see a picture, is looking for happiness in a picture. So the people who are looking for happiness in the outside objects, they are called sakam. They are performing an action because of that happiness which they are looking for. So that is sakam is not exactly uh, asakt. Asakt and sakam have slight difference. Asakt, sakam is looking for happiness there, but asakt is the one, if he doesn't get that happiness, he becomes very disenchanted. He becomes very unhappy. So asakti is a step forward, or afterwards the sakam ends. The sakam ends at a point and then asakti starts. So this is the combination of the two words. Similarly, niskam is more or less closer to anasakt. Niskam means that you do not have much desire or any desire out of an action which you are performing. You are not looking for any happiness in the work you are discharging, but you are discharging that work as your duty. So the Niskam and Anasakt are more or less synonymous, but Asakt and Sakam are not synonymous. Sakam is starting with the desire of results, and Asakt is the one when that result is not found, then you feel disappointed, you feel disenchanted, you feel unhappy. That is Asakt. So this is how I thought I'll go into these words, because these words will keep coming in the different chapters of Bhagavad Gita again and again. So this word yajna is very important to understand. Asakt, anasakt, sakam, and niskam. These words are extremely important, and we should understand them properly. Similarly, the three words which have been used in the verse number 17, that is rati, trapti, and santusti. That is in the context of your self contentment. This is also similar to what we call sthit pragya in certain ways, which was in chapter number 2, that you are contented with your own self. So I think I'll stop here. And if you have any questions, I will try my best to answer them to the best of my ability. And thank you very much.